Kanye West apologizes to everyone, blaming his racist remarks and hurtful comments on his bipolar 1 diagnosis. But does he really mean it, or is this just a PR stunt to hype his new album, Bully? Let's get into it. Kanye took out a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal apologizing to those I've hurt. 25 years ago, I was in a car accident that broke my jaw and caused injury to the right frontal lobe of my brain. At the time, the focus was on the visible damage, the fracture, the swelling, and the immediate physical trauma. The deeper injury, the one inside my skull, went unnoticed. Comprehensive scans were not done, neurological exams were limited, and the possibility of a frontal lobe injury was never raised. It wasn't properly diagnosed until 2023. So that's over 21 years later. That medical oversight caused serious damage to my mental health and led to my bipolar 1 diagnosis. Okay, just to recap, Kanye was diagnosed with bipolar 1 due to a psychiatric hospitalization back in 2016. So this is 7 years prior to this most recent brain scan that showed frontal lobe injury. Bipolar disorder comes with its own defense system, denial. When you're manic, you don't think you're sick. You think everyone else is overreacting. You feel like you're seeing the world more clearly than ever, when in reality, you're losing grip entirely. Once people label you as crazy, you feel as if you cannot contribute anything meaningful to the world. It's easy for people to joke and laugh it off when in fact, this is a very serious, debilitating disease you can die from. According to the World Health Organization and Cambridge University, people with bipolar disorder have a life expectancy that is shortened by 10 to 15 years on average, and a 2 to 3 time higher all-cause mortality rate than the general population. This is on par with severe heart disease, type 1 diabetes, HIV, and cancer, all lethal and fatal if left untreated. The scariest thing about this disorder is how persuasive it is when it tells you you don't need help. It makes you blind, but convinced you have insight. You feel powerful, certain, and unstoppable. I lost touch with reality. Things got worse the longer I ignored the problem. I said and did things I deeply regret. Some of the people I love the most, I treated the worst. You endured fear, confusion, humiliation, and the exhaustion of trying to love someone who was at times unrecognizable. Looking back, I became detached from my true self. In that fractured state, I gravitated toward the most destructive symbol I could find, the swastika, and even sold t-shirts bearing it. One of the difficult aspects of having bipolar type 1 are the disconnected moments, many of which I still cannot recall, that lead to poor judgment and reckless behavior that oftentimes feels like an out-of-body experience. I regret and am deeply mortified by my actions in that state, and am committed to accountability, treatment, and meaningful change. It does not excuse what I did, though. I'm not a Nazi or an anti-Semite. I love Jewish people. To the Black community, which held me down through all of the highs and lows and the darkest of times, the Black community is unquestionably the foundation of who I am. I'm so sorry to have let you down. I love us. In early 2025, I fell into a 4-month-long manic episode of psychotic, paranoid, and impulsive behavior that destroyed my life. As the situation became increasingly unsustainable, there were times I didn't want to be here anymore. Having bipolar disorder is not a state of constant mental illness. When you go into the manic episode, you are ill at that point. When you are not in an episode, you are completely normal. And that's when the wreckage from the illness hits the hardest. Hitting rock bottom a few months ago, my wife encouraged me to finally get help. I have found comfort in Reddit forums of all places. Different people speak of being in manic or depressive episodes of a similar nature. I read their stories and realize that I was not alone. It's not just me who ruins their entire life once a year despite taking meds every day and being told by the so-called best doctors in the world that I'm not bipolar, but merely experiencing symptoms of autism. Okay, he did come out a few months ago and talk about this, but the way that he was framing it was basically saying that he's in denial of his bipolar diagnosis and that he thinks he's autistic. And sure, people with autism can experience challenges navigating social dynamics, challenges with their emotional regulation, difficulty understanding others, and at times a lack of empathy. But that doesn't explain his racist tide trades. I mean, we're talking several years of these anti Semitic remarks. Neither autism nor any other developmental disabilities are a cause or linked to supremacist ideology or violence of any kind. My words as a leader in my community have real global impact and influence. In my mania, I lost complete sight of that. As I find my new baseline and new center through an effective regime of medication, therapy, exercise, and clean living, I have newfound much needed clarity. I am pouring my energy into positive, meaningful art, music, clothing, design, and other new ideas to help the world. I'm not asking for sympathy or a free pass, though I aspire to earn your forgiveness. I write today simply to ask for your patience and understanding as I find my way home with love. There's been a lot of speculation as to whether or not he actually wrote this letter. Personally, I don't feel like he did based on just the structure and the context of the data from the World Health Organization, Cambridge University. It's almost like he's presenting an abstract, like he's presenting this to a judge when the judge is deciding on sentencing. That's what this reads like to me. Yes, we know that you were in a car crash 20 plus years ago. Yes, we know you've had mental health struggles for years. And yes, we know that you've been adamant of denying that you've had mental health issues. You discounted medications, therapy, any type of treatment to better your emotional stability, to better your mental health. And in fact, a symptom of bipolar is feelings of grandiosity. And you see him with, at one point he was trying to start his own church and even referring to himself as God, thinking that he's above everything and everybody. And so therefore whatever mental health struggles that he's going through, it doesn't matter because he's above it. He's not like everyone else. So he can handle it himself. He can heal himself. And I have to also question the timing of this. He does have a new album that was set to drop in December, but that was postponed until end of January. And now, after this apology, it's been postponed again to March. And his family and friends have been telling him to get help for a very, very long time. In fact, that is a core reason as to why Kim Kardashian filed for divorce from him, because he was so impulsive and erratic. This is his second apology to the Jewish community since November. On November 6th, Ye went to meet with Rabbi Yoshiyahu Yosef Pinto Schlitt, and he met with him to apologize.
I feel really blessed to be able to sit here with you today and just take accountability. I was dealing with some various issues, dealing with bipolar also. So it would take the ideas I had and have me take them to an extreme where I would forget about the protection of the people around me and myself. So I wanted to come and take accountability. Sometimes people aren't that knowledgeable about the bipolar and the cause or what causes it and the way you act when you have this disease. So it's like if you left.
Well, people know. There were so many people telling him to get help. and he refused and rejected it all. So, this apology to the Jewish community through this rabbi apparently didn't work because at the end of November, he was scheduled to tour in Brazil. He had a concert specifically in Sao Paulo. And I was just recently in Sao Paulo. And if you don't know, they have a huge Jewish population. They have many Jewish monuments, many Jewish centers. And their Sao Paulo City Council actually voted to cancel his permit to perform because they were still very concerned that he was going to be performing the HH song. So then now we have him coming back after the holidays. His album Bully was supposed to be released in December. That got postponed. So now he's coming back end of January and doubling down on that apology, buying a whole one-page ad in the Wall Street Journal. It appears that he's being put through a series of formalities in order to ingratiate himself back into the music industry and the fashion industry. Now, no one has seen Kanye since before the apology. We do know that his current wife, Bianca Censori, does have power of attorney. So there's also been some. Again, this is rumors and gossip that he may be placed under a conservatorship. So Ye did respond via email to Vanity Fair's request to get a comment from him about the apology. Vanity Fair sent questions to Ye over email, some of which he declined to answer, including those about where his anti Semitic sentiments may have originated from and why, and how he feels about Nick Fuentes dancing to his HH song. Vanity Fair, some will say that regardless of the truth and tragedy of your diagnosis, this apology is a PR move so that you can release music and operate your business in the ways that you used to without the stigma of people thinking you're anti Semitic. What would you say to them? And mind you, these are responses via email. Yay. It's my understanding that I was in the top 10 most listened to artists overall in the US on Spotify in 2025, and last week and most days as well. My upcoming album, Bully, is currently one of the most anticipated pre-saves of any album on Spotify, too. My 2007 album, Graduation, was also the most listened to and streamed hip hop album of 2025. This, for me, as evidenced by the latter, isn't about reviving my commerciality. This is because these remorseful feelings were so heavy on my heart and weighing on my spirit. I owe a huge apology once again for everything that I said that hurt the Jewish and Black communities in particular. All of it went too far. I look at wreckage of my episode and realize that this isn't who I am. As a public figure, so many people follow and listen to my every word. It's important that they realize and understand what side of history that I want to stand on, and that is one of love and positivity. Okay, yes, his songs were listened to. I mean, okay, you're going back to 2007 saying, "Oh, people still listen to my music from then." Okay, well, many people view him as a completely different person from way back in 2007. But the reality was that he was being canceled. He had lost sponsorships, huge sponsorships and partnerships in recent years. His tour dates were being canceled. No one is wanting to play this latest album, especially the HH song. So I think here he's being disingenuous. When did you begin to regret some of your public statements and actions? Not until I was out of the episode and in treatment did the reality set in of what I did while I was disconnected from my true self. So he's responding to the 4-month episode that he had at the beginning of 2025, but none of that explains his previous actions. He has apologized for being anti-Semitic twice before. So naturally people are going to have doubts as to, well, what makes us want to believe you now? The antipsychotic drug took me into a really deep depressive episode, says Ye. My wife recognized that and we sought out what's been an effective and stabilizing course correction in my regime from a rehab facility in Switzerland. Where is he currently? No one's been able to speak to him. it all over the phone. He hasn't been posting any videos. I don't know. Is he still at this facility in Switzerland? Is his PR team just in high gear right now and taking over all of his public statements or public responses? Even in this response here, when you're manic, you really don't think you're sick. You think that everyone else is deeply overreacting. You feel like you're seeing the world so much more clearly on things when in reality you're losing your grip entirely. That's what it felt like at the time. I mean, this is literally almost verbatim from the WSJ letter. You've repeatedly spoken about not wanting to be medicated. What were your fears about going on medication, and have any of the things you were concerned about actually happened? I've been put on and taken off many medications. That's just part of the journey. The African American community has a hypersensitivity to antipsychotic drugs more than most groups. Finding the right dosage is difficult, but it's important and critical to finding the right balance with the illness. And then he goes on again with the data and statistics. So who is actually writing this? It's not Ye. Let's address the traumatic brain injury and bipolar link. A study published in 2014 indicates that people who suffer traumatic brain injuries are 28 times more likely to receive a bipolar disorder diagnosis later in life. This is certainly no surprise. Other studies show that people with head injuries are 439% more likely to receive a mental health diagnosis. Typically, symptoms of bipolar disorder or other mental health issues present within the first year, but it may take up to 15 years after the injury for symptoms to appear. So Kanye was in that car crash in 2002, and then he was officially diagnosed in 2016. So that is 14 years. So he does fall within that range. This is the study that was being referenced. So this study was actually conducted in Denmark, study based on all Danes born between 1977 and 2000, totaling 1.4 million people. Researchers looked at depression, schizophrenia, bipolar. By comparing the injured people's risk of developing the disorders with the rest of the study population, they found that those with head injuries were 65% more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia, 59% more likely to develop a depression, 28% more likely to be diagnosed with bipolar, and then 438% more likely to suffer from organic mental disorders. Yes, there is a link between traumatic brain injury and bipolar. But the elephant in the room is, how does that make you a racist? Is there a link between developing bipolar and becoming a racist? Well, yeah, there actually is. This is from the Western Journal of Medicine from January of 2002. The American Psychiatric Association has never officially recognized extreme racism as a mental health problem, although the issue was raised more than 30 years ago. The association's officials rejected the recommendation, arguing that because so many Americans are racist, even extreme racism in this country is normative, a cultural problem rather than an indication of psychopathology. Clearly, anyone who scapegoats a whole group of people and seeks to eliminate them to resolve his or her internal conflicts meets criteria for a delusional disorder. Extreme racist delusions can also occur as a major symptom in other psychotic disorders, such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Persons suffering delusions usually have serious social dysfunction that impairs their ability to work with others and maintain employment. And apologies, I forgot to say who wrote this article. This was by Dr. Alvin Poussant, and he is quoted here. I have treated several patients who projected their own unacceptable behavior and fears onto ethnic minorities, scapegoating them for society's problems. Their strong racist feelings, which were tied to fixed belief systems impervious to reality checks, were symptoms of serious mental dysfunction. When these patients became more aware of their own problems, they grew less paranoid and less prejudice. It is time for the American Psychiatric Association to designate extreme racism as a mental health problem by recognizing it as a delusional psychotic symptom. Persons afflicted with such psychopathology represent an immediate danger to themselves and others. All right, everyone, that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and share. And let me know in the comments section, what do you think is going on? Is this real? Is this a PR stunt? Let me know down below. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.